This video is on equations with fractions. We also need to talk about reciprocal. The official definition of reciprocal is two numbers whose product is 1. But a good way to think about a reciprocal is just a fraction or number flipped upside down. The reciprocal of 1/3 is 3/1. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. You just flip it upside down. Here I have an equation, n divided by 3 equals 9. In order to solve the equation, I have to get rid of this divided by 3. So I could multiply both sides by 3. These 3's cancel out because one's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. That's why I did it, so I could get n by itself. And 9 times 3 is 27. We also need to understand that I could have written this as 1n over 3. Or I could write it as 1/3 n over 3, 1n over 3, 1/3 n, all the same thing. So another way to do it, looking at it this way, is to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is still 3. To get rid of times 1/3, you multiply both sides by the reciprocal 3. These 3's cancel out, and on the right side, 9 times 3 is 27. On the bottom, 1 times 1 is 1. Over 1 is understood. We don't have to write that. If I have negative n over 2 equals 8, I need to understand that that is the same thing as negative 1/2 n equals 8. It is also the same thing as n over negative 2 equals 8. All of those are the same. If I solved it this way, I have 2 steps. I have to get rid of divided by 2 by multiplying both sides by 2. Then I still have to get rid of times negative 1 by dividing by negative 1, and your answer is negative 16. If I look at it this way, I'm going to say to get rid of times negative 1/2, I multiply both sides by the reciprocal. If I multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is negative 2, on the left side, they cancel out because they're reciprocals, and on the right side, 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. And I could also think about this negative sign as being in the bottom. I can put it in the bottom or the top. I just can't put it in the bottom and the top. So if I put it in the bottom, then I can think about, okay, I'm trying to get rid of divided by negative 2. I multiply both sides by negative 2. And your answer is negative 16. All right, let's look at another. Here I have negative 1/4 n equals negative 8. I would multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is negative 4 over 1. Can't see that very good, but reciprocals cancel out. And negative 8 times negative 4 is positive 32. We have the answer. Here I have 3/5 n equals 6. So I could think about that as being a reciprocal and multiply both sides by 5/3. Reciprocals cancel out on the left. And on the right side, 6 over 3 cancels out and becomes 2 over 1. 2 times 5 on the top is 10. And on the left side, the reciprocals canceled out. Of course, you could put 6 times 5/3 in your calculator. That's fine. But this is how you do it without a calculator. Now, another way to look at this is 3n over 5 equals 6. I can still do the same thing, multiply both sides by 5/3, but since I kind of put that in the numerator, I could think about it as 2 steps. Get rid of divided by 5 by multiplying both sides by 5. These 5's cancel out, and 6 times 5 on the right side is 30. To get rid of times 3, you divide by 3. Still get 10. So as long as you're not afraid to multiply fractions, or you have a calculator that does, it's a little less work to multiply by the reciprocal than to change it into a 2-step equation. This will be a good time to start pausing the video and trying them yourself if you would like. I'm trying to get rid of times 2/3, so I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is 3 over 2. 3's and the 2's cancel out and just leave you with n. I don't even have to really show my work over there. Everything I need to do is on the left side. Nothing will simplify. So when I multiply my numerator, 3 times -1 is -3 on top. 2 times 4 is 8 on bottom. Your answer is n equals -3/8. And of course, you could multiply those fractions in your calculator if you would rather. So move on to number 6. On number 6, we have negative n/5 equals 7/5. Now, there's a lot of ways to think about this negative n/5. Negative n/5 could be -1/5 n. It could be -1 n/5. It could be n/-5. All of these are different ways to write this. So you can think about it any way you want. I kind of like this way here to think about it because I don't have to think about fractions and it's one step. To get rid of divided by -5, I multiply both sides by -5, which is multiplying by the reciprocal. This is 1 over -5. This is -5 over 1. They're reciprocals. Here, 5 and -5 simplifies and gives me -1 over 1. And on top, I have 7 times -1 is -7. On the bottom, I have 1 times 1, which is 1. I don't have to write over 1. It's understood. Number 7. Again, be a good time if you would, well, this one's a little different. You can pause and try it if you're comfortable with it. But now we're not multiplying a fraction, we're adding it. So I'm not trying to get rid of times a fraction here. I'm trying to get rid of -1/2 or -1/2. So I'm going to do the inverse operation, which is +1/2 to both sides. 1/2 and -1/2 cancel out, give me n equals. Now, if you put this in your calculator, that's fine. But if you do it on paper, you have to get a common denominator. The common denominator is 8. 2 times 4 on the bottom is 8. 1 times 4 on top is 4. So 1/2 becomes 4/8. And now I can add them. When you're adding fractions with a common denominator, you keep that common denominator and you combine the numerators. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9/8 is an improper fraction. So it's best to write that as a mixed number, which is 1 and 1/8. 8 goes into 9 one time with a remainder of 1 out of 8. And what we actually did there, 9 divided by 8, let's just look at that real quick. 1 times 8 is 8. 9 minus 8 is 1. It goes in there one time with a remainder of 1 out of 8. 1 and 1/8. All right, number 8, again, we're not multiplying here, we're subtracting 2. I'm trying to get rid of -2, so I'm going to plus 2 to both sides. And that gives me n equals. Now, if this were a positive 5/7, I could do it easily in my head. 2 plus 5/7 is 2 5/7. But it's a negative 5/7, so it's a little harder. Now, you can put that in your calculator, but if you do it on paper, you have to write 2 as a fraction with a common denominator, which is 7. And I know that 14 over 7 is the same thing as 2. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Now I can work it out. My common denominator is 7. Combine the numerator, 14 minus 5 is 9. Again, we have an improper fraction. 7 goes into 9 one time with a remainder of 2 out of 7. So my answer is 1 and 2 over 7. I have several more to practice. Again, these are great to pause and try on your own each time, even though they're getting slightly different. So this one looks a little bit different. It's a two-step equation. I want to get rid of divided by -2. So I multiply both sides by -2. They cancel out here. That's why I did it. It leaves me with n plus 1. And 15 times -2 is -30. Now I have one step left to get the n by itself. Get rid of plus 1 by subtracting 1 from both sides. 1 minus 1 is nothing. And -30 combined with -1, and you could write plus -1, same thing as -1. -30 combined with -1 is -31. Here's one very similar to that one, if you'd like to pause it and try it on your own. To get rid of divided by -2, I multiply both sides by -2. That gives me -2 times 14, -28 on the left. I'm left with 6 plus n on the right. Now I have a one-step equation. To get rid of +6, I minus 6 to both sides. And that gives me n equals -28 plus -6 is -34. Number 11. Here, I have to get rid of divided by 3 and +4. We start at the bottom of GEMDAS, order of operations, and work our way up when we're solving an equation. So to get rid of +4, I minus 4 to both sides. That leaves me with n over 3 on the left. -16 plus -4 is -20 on the right. Now I have one more step. I've got to get rid of divided by 3, so I multiply both sides by 3, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal, 3 over 1, 1 over 3. Either way, it cancels out, gives me n by itself, and -20 times 3 is -60. I have a few more here for us. Okay, k over -5 equals 7/5. Now I can look at this as 1 over -5, so I can multiply by the reciprocal, which is -5 over 1, or I can look at it as divided by -5, so I do the inverse operation, which is times -5. And I'm going to put it over 1 on the right side so that I can work that out. You could put 7/5 times -5 in your calculator, but I like doing them on paper, so my 5s, 5 over 5 becomes 1 over 1, but that top one is still negative. In my numerator, when I multiply, 7 times -1 is -7. And in the bottom, I end up with 1. I don't have to write that. There it is. I want to show you one with decimals just so that you know you do it the same way. To get rid of times 2.1, you divide by 2.1. And if decimals challenge you, you can always put that in your calculator, but I can do it in my head. 84 divided by 21 is 4. And that'd be 4.0 if I kept the decimal, but here we're just going to leave it as 4. And let's do one more. This is one we've done, so if you'd like to pause the video and try it yourself. I want to get rid of this +1, so I need a -1 or -1 to both sides. Now I'm getting rid of divided by 4, so I multiply both sides by 4, or I could say I multiply both sides by the reciprocal, which is still 4, because this is 1 over 4 or 1/4. And I'm multiplying by the reciprocal to get rid of it. 16 times 4 is 64. So that is our video on equations with fractions. Thank you.